Okay, so first things first, how do you get your stencils put together? How do you put the images together for your stencils? Well, I usually start with something that looks a lot like this, just a rough sketch to begin with. And then I myself do use the computer to make something that's more finished in 2 layers. And that's where I got that red and that blue layer, right? The blue and the red layer, just like this, right? Come from the original image. I kind of break it up into 2 sections, and I know that when they lay down, you know, that's pretty much what the print's going to look like. Can you see that? And you can use the light box, you know, to kind of see how your colors are going to work. That, of course, this is Photoshop, so it fixes it up for you to look like something like this. But if you don't have access to Photoshop, that's okay. What you do instead is get your sketch the way you like it, and then use the same method, the sort of transparency method, to lay your images down and go, okay, I think roughly I know that this is going to be fire here, so this is going to be red. This background generally is going to be blue. So I'm going to just start to build up my shapes just with pencil. And that works just as well. Then you can actually use this as the thing that you cut out for your stencil. Or you can lay your mylar down on top of this and then cut the stencil out of your mylar. Either way, paper works just as well. If you don't have access to a light table, your window works just as well. So you can use your window as a light table and then start to fill in areas. Okay, this is where all my blue is going to go, right? I'm going to put some details in the legs, so I'll draw those in there. There's the ribs, right? The top of his head like that. I know that part of the moon is going to be blue. The wings are going to be white, so I'll leave those open. And that's how I'll build my stencil with pencil. Okay, so then the second step is cutting the stencil out of mylar. So it's a little hard to see, but I've got a thin sheet of mylar laying down on top of just the red. And I'm very carefully cutting this out with an X-Acto blade. And you can see I'm cutting tabs into the image, into the mylar, so that the stencil kind of stays intact. Little helper tabs that help keep the stencil more solid, staying in one piece. And here's the blue. Again, carefully, section by section, just cutting out the mylar, using the blue color as a guide. For those of you who want to really get into mixing ink, this is what I'm using. This speedball, it's nothing fancy. You can get this at any art store. This is processed cyan, and this is processed magenta. And I'm gonna, before I do any print, I typically mix the ink first and then do tests. And oh, and I forgot to mention this transparent base, and I'll explain the reason for this in a second. Before I pull any print at all, I test the ink that I'm going to use to make sure that I'm happy with the color, and if I'm not happy with the color, I mix it again. It can feel a little bit like wasting ink. I've wasted a lot of ink in my time just trying to get that right color, and it's a learning process, and if you're new at it, it can be difficult. We're making a 2-color print today, and I said in the instructions to buy processed ink, and the reason for that is because the inks will lay down on top of each other nicely if you're printing process. Otherwise, it's going to be solid colors that just sit on top of each other. It's acrylic, right? So imagine doing a swipe of acrylic paint and then a swipe of another kind of thick acrylic paint. It's just the one color is going to just cover the other one. But what we're interested in for this particular print is colors that play well together and meld together. as you lay one color down and then the other one. Today we'll be laying the red down first, this magenta, and then the blue down second, this blue. And because I'm going to mix the blue with this transparent base, it makes it more less opaque, and you get the combination color, the blue lays down on top of the red to make this kind of eggplant, this dark brown or eggplant color. That's what we're after today. What we're after with this is a nice light bright red. This guy is, it's called magenta, but it's really a richer, it's richer, it's a little oranger than your typical magenta. And then this I'm going to mix with this transparent base to get that lighter blue. So I'm going to start with a little, you can use a yogurt container, whatever you got. I'm going to start with the transparent base and just, I'm going to go about half and half with this ink. You don't need a ton of ink when you print. That's one mistake I always make, is I always mix way too much ink. So this is, you know, just hitting the bottom of the container here and about the same amount of this blue. Now give this a good mix. The desired effect is what you get when you mix your inks carefully. I could spend all day just mixing ink. I could spend all day just mixing ink. It's pleasing to the eye and soothing to the smell. I actually really do like the way the ink smells. I know it's not good for me. You ever been to one of those, like an offset printer? You know, those big machines, those big CMYK machines. They use those big drums, those big, offset printer places. The smell in there is like intoxicating. I'm sure to work there is a different deal, right? But probably want to limit your exposure to that stuff. But it smells really good. Also, when you get a new book, you get a brand new book and open it up, that smell of the ink, delicious. One thing about not being in the desert is that I don't need to drink like gallons and gallons of water. I mean, I probably should be anyway, but okay, so you can see, I'm just gonna give this just a little bit of water. Not a lot, just a little splash. Because I want this to feel more like motor oil than cake frosting, if that makes sense. You want it to really, really glide through the screen when you print. Okay, this is feeling pretty good. Yeah, that's about right. Okay, so we're doing this. Let's test the ink. So I got my red, added a little bit of water to it. Process cyan. But looks like red to me. Don't need a ton of ink, just enough to do your test. Here's your squeegee. Very pink. This really is turning out more magenta than that. Is really quite pink. I had something more red in mind, so might mix a deeper red there. I'm not sure. Maybe that's okay. Okay, I found some red that I had mixed before that's got a little bit of this medium red mixed into it. So it's this processed magenta mixed with this medium red. That will get you more of closer to a true red, I guess you might call it. Something that I'm interested. If I'm interested in something that looks a little bit more like a typical red, like a race car red. like a fire engine red. That's what I meant after. So again, it's this magenta mixed with this processed magenta mixed with some of this medium red. That's the magenta straight out of the can. The processed magenta. This is the second one I mixed. It's too light. There's too much transparent base in there. It's too salmon. It's kind of pukey. Then this is where we're at now, and I'm happy with this. So I'll use this now to test the blue. Okay, bam. I nailed that blue. So this is the blue I just pulled from the processed blue combination, processed blue and this transparent base, and I am so happy with this. Look at the way that shines. This super pretty deep cyan blue. I think that's gorgeous. And then watch what happens when you combine that just doing one pull. Yeah, that's really pretty. So you can see, because I'm using process inks, I am getting this really love. There's the magenta and that blue I just pulled. The combination is that yummy midnight blue. So I am just psyched. That just turned out really well. I'm gonna keep on going just because it's fun. This is the red that I want to use for the print. So let's see what happens when I put the blue down on top of that. Yeah, I was, sometimes when you go to mix ink, all of a sudden you're 3 hours in because you've just, for whatever reason, the screen printing gods are not with you that day, and it just means you got to work a little harder. But I am happy to report that this is working out really well. So check that out. It's almost black there. It's like a deep blueberry. That's just the process blue with some transparent base lying down on top of that red that we just mixed. So you can see how different these blues are, and the resulting color. That is really approaching black. It's about as black as you can get without being black. Okay, now this one is the magenta and that same blue, and you can see the resulting color is like almost like a purple. It's a little lighter and brighter, and I might actually use this for the print today because even though, yeah, I like this red, overall I like this color combination better for this print. And then down to the salmon, you can see again, so the blue gets a little lighter and brighter. So there's my color tests.